So good morning, friends. I want to extend a warm welcome to you today. Everyone is welcome here. You are welcome here regardless of your age, your race, your income, your religion, or the gender with which you identify. You are welcome here regardless of who you love, who you vote for, the regrets that burden you, or the mistakes you have made. In this safe community, we support each other in the sacred task of becoming, celebrate the transcending mystery of life, and rely on the transforming power of love. Here we revere the words of the great teachers such as Jesus, the Buddha, and Confucius. It is, however, the task of every UU to be their own Buddha, their own Jesus, their own Confucius. It is a cornerstone of our religion that each of us is the author of their own life experience, and through the practice of loving kindness, we can heal our bodies, our minds, our spirits, and our planet. It is our work as a community to walk with each other along the spiritual pathways that lead towards happiness, compassion, and life fully lived. And while we are a safe harbor where there is solace and healing, we are also a launching pad from which we are propelled into the tumult of life to live courageously, justly, and lovingly. In this sacred place, we create the structures that lift up the downtrodden, set the captives free, and heal the brokenhearted. We have learned that to be fully human is to be fully divine, and that with a little help from our friends, we can each tell our own unique story. So today is Mother's Day. How many mothers do we have here? How many grandmothers? How many people have a mother? Okay, everybody. So it's everybody's day today. So looking forward to it. Joanne has put some work into. We have a panel discussion, 2 panel discussions, and lots of good stuff.
We light this chalice in honor of every woman who has brought life into this world or nurtured life already here. Motherhood in all its forms is one of the greatest forces in the universe and one of its primary expressions of love, sacrifice, and compassion. We light this chalice in gratitude and awe for the birth mothers, adoptive mothers, foster mothers, stepmothers, grandmothers, aunts, teachers, mentors, and other women who have blessed us with their love, support, and guidance. May we bless you in return. Okay, then we have a little flower presentation. We realize that Mother's Day doesn't elicit joy for everyone. Some of us approach Mother's Day with a sense of dread or sadness due to tragic life circumstances. If you can relate to this sentiment, please know that we hold you in our hearts and acknowledge your sorrow. We are adding 4 white roses to the altar in your honor. Jerry, could you put one in at a time? Thank you. The first white rose is for would-be mothers who were unable to conceive or who lost a child through miscarriage or stillbirth. A second rose for mothers who endured the most significant loss possible, the loss of a child they had come to know and love. A third rose for mothers and grandmothers who are estranged from one or more children or grandchildren. Oh, and great-grandmas. And great-great-grandmas. And then a final rose for anyone of any gender who lost their mother to death or estrangement or who had a negative mothering experience. Thank you. Please know that we are here to minister to all, and individual sorrows are no less sacred than individual joys. In fact, many of us have experienced both in relation to our mothers or as mothers ourselves. Throughout today's service, please feel free to share your entire self, including your emotions and experiences. We honor you, all of you, and hope you find meaning in today's service. And then I came across this Mother's Day prayer written by UU Wayne Amison, and I thought it was a good one. Kind of speaks to what we just did with the roses. Spirit of life, known to us in many ways, but so often in so many cultures in the image of a mother. Hold us in your arms this day. Let all that we value and all that we hold dear in the images of motherhood we carry be our guide. We are grateful for all the parents that share the community of this congregation, the young ones and the old ones, those still with us and those departed. May the blessings they give us be rich and overflowing. For some of us, our experiences and images of parents have been tarnished by absence or abuse. Let us not forget that not all mothers, not all parents have been able to rise to the many challenges that parenting brings us. May we find healing and maybe even forgiveness for all the ways that our parents fell short of fulfilling the love that gave us birth. The community of this fellowship gives us a great blessing. We are gifted with the chance to celebrate birth and parenting and the glorious unfolding of human potential. Today is a day for such celebration. Let us make the most of it. Let us use it for Thanksgiving and renewal and rededication in the good company of loved ones and friends. May it be so. Amen. I think the next item in the order of service is inspirational reading on motherhood. I think I may have oversold it a bit. I don't know if it's inspirational, but is anyone here part of a Facebook group called the Worldwide Circle of Crohn's? I'm surprised. So you all would fit right in. Anyway, there were a couple of things I saw there that I thought were meaningful. The first one was, woman does not emerge from man's ribs, not ever. It is he who emerges from her womb. One of the greatest lies of patriarchy is framing the father as the life giver. That just I thought that was really interesting, because that's the story I grew up with in the Catholic Church, and I never thought about that it was a reframing of the giver of life. And then this one I liked also, the women before. It is not just your mother who may walk with you in spirit. It is her mother too, and her mother's mother, and her mother's friends who love by choice and not by blood. And the women before them, generations and generations of female energy, watching in admiration as you forge ahead, living better, feeling better, accepting better than they ever did, as they much hoped you would. So when you feel low, lonely, or unloved, and I think this can apply to men too, remember them, feel them. They are with you, and they burn brightly with their boundless light in everything you do. You, my friends, are the moment in time of many women gone before, and you will lay pathways, like they did, for those who come up next. What a beautiful, unending legacy.
Thank you. That was wonderful, Joanne, and inspirational. So today we have a special treat. We have a panel of expert mothers and grandmothers, and at least one great-grandmother. We're going to come forward, and Gloria, you're closest. You can come up. We have chairs here for you to sit down on. And so please come forward, and we will ask you some questions.
Gloria is our representative of mothers, grandmothers, and great-grandmothers.
Yes. So,
no, one of these 5 chairs.
yeah. Yeah, have a seat. Everybody, Audrey, Tanya, Tina, please come on up. Yeah, okay. And Judy, yeah. So we have a very distinguished assembly here. Now, it could be true that the questions I'm about to ask our panel were assembled at great cost in a special meeting of well-known sociologists, psychologists, anthropologists, and specialists in child care and family development at a recent annual meeting of the International Association of Motherhood during a closed session high in an exclusive retreat center in the Swiss Alps. Or it could be that Joanne just made them up. We're going to let, you don't have to answer every question. You really don't even add any question. But if you want to answer a question, we'd invite you to just begin. So, what is the greatest joy of being a mother, a grandmother, or a great-grandmother?
I think at the moment, it's being able to watch the young person when the pieces just fall into place and something clicks and they get that moment of joy and I just figured this out, and you're there to smile and be like, oh my God, I had a part in this, but they're figuring it out on their own, which is ultimately what you want.
Oh, thank you, Tanya.
I think for me, one of the greatest joys of motherhood is just seeing the connection from one generation to the next and the traditions that they pick up and the ideas that they hold on to.
I like that, Tanya, you said like at this moment, because I think that those joys change, throughout the different phases. And I think that's cool to acknowledge. But for me, I would say the greatest joy is that your kids love you unconditionally, even when you feel like you screw up all the time. And they don't see that really, they just love you.
I think Clay said only half the time even, so you see. For me, I think it is, you all know my little awe-inspiring little munchkins. They are just like, everything is so full of beauty and vibrant for them, and seeing it through their eyes and like being able to not only witness their excitement, but kind of vicariously live through it and experience moments in a different way myself.
I guess growing up with them was a joy. As they grew, I grew in many, many ways, and I learned from them as they learned from me. And that was always a joy. And having 7 children around you was wonderful, always. And I was as happy as they were, I think, most of the time. And now my joy is the fact that they are so supportive of each other. And even though I might not be here much longer, they will be there taking care of each other and loving each other. And to me, that's a great joy.
Thank you, Gloria. Okay, let's ask another question. And these questions, you guys have never seen them before, is that correct? Okay, no, that's not true. I did send them out. So, what is the hardest part of motherhood?
What is what?
The hardest part.
Of motherhood?
Hardest part of motherhood, I guess, was watching my children if something went wrong and they were unhappy, and I was not able to give them what they needed, the answers to their questions or the joy that they should have. So that was difficult, but I was always there for them. But it was hard for me to be able to answer their questions or give them what they might want in some way.
Thank you, Gloria. Tina?
I think the hardest part has been not trying to over-beautify the ugly. Like, I believe in letting them struggle and letting them see both sides of things, but sometimes things are so dark, and not trying to find the most appropriate way to let them experience it without it taking them down.
I think the most difficult thing is feeling maybe unseen or unvalidated by like society at large, and feeling like we do so much work and for so long it's been unpaid and unacknowledged, and just feeling like, motherhood is so quaint, it's so cute, and it's hard work. It deserves more compensation than it's ever gotten, and kind of trying to always feel like in the background I have to justify how important being a mother is, and like how important it is that we're giving the greatest gift to the world. We're giving you your future nurses and the people who are going to serve your coffee, and like take care of all of you when you're older, and all of us, and take care of the earth when we're gone, and that deserves more acknowledgement than it gets societally. And I know that like individuals, like all of you recognize that, my parents recognize that, my husband recognizes that, but like systems don't yet recognize that, and it's hard to live within that.
Amen. Thank you, Audrey.
I think one of the hardest parts of motherhood is getting enough sleep.
Because if you're not sleeping when they're infants, then you're just worried once they start driving, and the list goes on. Yeah, I think the challenge for me, like we're a blended family, so that brings a certain set of challenges on its own. But I still, from experiences in my own childhood, like I want to fix everything. And when someone comes with a problem and some hurt that they're experiencing. It's like, I want to jump in and be like, nope, I'll fix that for you. I will make that right. But the hard part is taking that step back and like, okay, you're going to experience the darkness that sometimes does pop up in the world, and you have to learn how to build your own little shield and struggle through it. So for me, it's taking that step back and think, okay, I can't fix it all, even though I want to.
Thank you, Tanya. What is the one thing you would most like to receive from your children or your grandchildren?
I think for me, it would be knowing that they're at peace with themselves in whatever path they choose to walk, that they have their own inner strength and peace with who they are as a person.
Wow, thank you.
I think for me, what I'd like to receive from my children is just knowing that I've made a difference, and that no matter where they go or what they're doing, that they are always going to have a part of me in their hearts.
My husband and I often joke, like when we do things wrong that we wish we would have done differently, we're always joking after, oh, that's going to be something for them to tell their therapist, and I think everybody has that experience. But I think what I would want most from them, despite that, is that when they grow up, like, even if maybe they go through periods where they thought, I wish my mom had done this better, I wish, I had more of this from my mom or my dad, that like, in the end, they will arrive at the conclusion that mom and dad did the best they could, and maybe even see some of the struggles, like, and recognize those, that like, oh, mom didn't get enough sleep, and oh, mom was, trying to work full time and drive us around and do all these things, and like that they would recognize those things and say it was enough.
I hope they just are there for each other. Like that's the best I think I could get from them, is just to see them support each other and be there for each other.
Thank you, Tina.
I hope that my children will always be aware of the world around them, and that they will love each other always and support each other. That's the most important. And I hope that they will be models for their children and their children's children, because my children now are older than a lot of you, and they're so supportive of one another, and I think that's so important, to be aware not only of themselves and their life, but of the world around them.
Thank you, Gloria. And what advice would you give new grandmothers or mothers? Any advice you would like to pass along?
To love one another, to be kind to one another and to others, and to find joy and and find a joy in your life, and know that with each other and for each other, and with friends and neighbors, and look at the positive side of things. I would give them not the negatives, but always what is good, what is better, what do I see that makes me happy, and how can I share that with others. I guess that would be it, because that's what I do for myself, and I would like them to be that way for them too, and to teach their children as all those things. Just pass down that feeling of love and kindness, and a sense of humor and a happiness that goes along with it. It really is important to find some joy, some happiness in life. That's what I feel.
Thank you, Gloria.
think I would just say don't get caught up in it all. Like, don't get caught up in all the books and the groups and what everyone, just enjoy the small moments and accept that there's going to be really great moments that are huge and they're in the smallest frame, and there's going to be moments that are tragic and they're huge and it might take you a minute, but there's no right or wrong. Just move through it and keep going, and can take a deep breath and look back and be like, oh yeah, I did that.
You're never going to have clean floors ever again, so just wear socks and get over it. But also, kind of what Tina said, like, there's no like one right way to be a mother, and like especially when you see things on social media and you see kind of a lot of things kind of crop up as like, this seems to be the narrative, this is what everybody's talking about, this is the way everybody's talking about motherhood, and oh, it's so deep and beautiful, and like, you don't have to be that kind of mother if that's not what you're feeling. Like, there are other ways to express your love and your love for your children and your love for your family, and it may not look like everybody else's way of expression, and that's okay.
I guess one of the things I would tell my kids and my grandkids is what I have observed actually. When our kids were little, we read to them every night, and now I see my own children with their children, and they read to them every night. And make sure to give them books and write an inscription in the front and date it, so they'll always have that.
I think I would just recommend find your community and stick with whoever your community is that supports you. Because I know for me personally, like, I'm not the only person that was involved in trying to raise my child. And I've certainly been involved in trying to raise other people's children. And there's no, seeing both sides of it, you can have a lot of like pressure and shame or guilt put on you that why can't you do these things for your own kid or whatever that may look like. But find that community and take full advantage of the people that are willing to help, because they're there, and let them do what they're good at, and they will have something entirely different to bring to the table.
Thank you. Thank you all. That's very lovely. I have one last question, and I'm going to open it up to the audience too, or the congregation. We're not an audience, we're a congregation. And the question is, how has being a mother affected your spirituality? And this is a very important question, I think, because I remember when my wife and I went to seminary, we were both going to take up studies, but we also had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. And the mothering responsibilities half of them fell on me, which was not the way it was when I was working. And I remember speculating as I was sitting there watching my 2-year-old and 1-year-old in the sandbox, thinking, it's a wonder we are not extinct. So at any rate, I open that question to everybody, and let our 5 panelists speak. The question is, how has being a mother affected your spirituality?
Mine's come in, I would say, waves. I had very negative religious experiences as a child, so I've gone, totally the other way, where it's like, no, we have nothing to do with any sort of organized religion, period. I don't care what you call it. But you mellow and you remember things that, your parents maybe did do correctly, even amongst all the things that they didn't. And it's a tide for me. Just, sometimes it flows one way, then the other, and I realize there's bits and pieces to pull from whatever religious core that humans have. And I certainly haven't figured it all out, but being back here in particular right now is bringing peace to the kids as a whole in a way that is sometimes very uncomfortable for me to be back in a religious setting, but we're going to roll with it and see where it goes.
I think one of the ways that being a parent, whether it's a mother or a father, affects you spiritually is just helping your kids figure out what's right and what's wrong. And sometimes it's not only what's right and what's wrong, it's what's right for them, and what's wrong for them, and kind of incorporating the values of both, the mother and the father, to help them grow into the kind of human beings that you are happy to have walking the earth.
I would say, like, it's brought to me like just a wider sense of community, and like just an understanding that as much as I love my children or fear for my children or want the best for my children, that like other parents are doing the same thing, and like being able to relate, I guess, to that segment of humanity as a whole, and just being able to, like, we have this shared part of our humanity, and that thing they say about like there is no such thing as other people's children, like we're all each other's children, and all of we all belong to each other. And so being able to like see, just being able to see another parent and a child, and maybe an interaction that is positive or negative or comfortable or uncomfortable, and go, I get you, I see you, like it's okay.
Thank you, Audrey.
For me, spirituality has always been such an individual journey, and it's not one that I mean, I'll speak with anyone on values and things that are important, but when I had kids, I'm cognizant of modeling for them, and so I feel like I've shared more of those in an actual put into words kind of a way, not just through action, so that they can hear it and see it, and it's made me a little bit more aware of where I've shifted on things, or where the values lie, and what I want to pass on and what's important.
I never gave much thought of it in the word of spirituality, but I gave it in the feelings that I had within me, like, I don't know what you would call it. What I felt I wanted to transfer to my children, to give them that goodness and that kindness and that love that I felt for them, to transcend it, to let them feel it too, and surround them with that kind of love and beauty that I felt, and somehow in the words and the love that I would show to them through people, through my husband, through others, that they're part of a bigger thing than I am, that the world around them is important, and that they must look at the good and the better, and in our lives as we live it each day. And we were a loving family, and I gave that kind of love to them to share with each other and to share with the world. And that to me was a feeling. It was never much more than that. And the humanity of it all.
Thank you. Now I'll ask that question to anybody here, any parent here. How has being a parent affected your spirituality? Lisa?
Well, in my case, it brought me tip off. In 1997, Ian was a newborn and Walter was 2 years old, and I wanted more community. And it was suggested that I try out this place on Lincoln Avenue, and I loved it, and I stayed. So it brought me Unitarian Universalism.
Thank you, Lisa. Deej?
I have to tell you about a religious moment. I was young. I was 28 years old. I was in the middle of Chicago, recently divorced, no money. I mean, no money. Really, very poor. So when I had my kids, I tried to make it as exciting as possible. And one day, not too long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I sat the kids around. I said, "Did you kids know how poor we were when I was raising you?" And they were like, "What?" We were? Okay, I had the religious moment. I did a good job.
Amen. Anybody else would like to respond? Beth and Leanne and Julia.
It's like how to be brief. One thing I want to say is being a mother was, the most wonderful experience of my entire life. The kind of love that flowed between us, and also partly the healing of being a good mother. And of course, I've always been a very spiritual person, so it's hard to untangle all that because it has a lot to do with, teaching your child how to approach the world in kindness and love and so on. But like Lisa, I joined Unity Temple when Zoe was about 3. And so the village she grew up within was, Unitarian Universalism. And it was a big village there. So there were a lot of other kids and a lot of other youth. And, one of the funniest things is that, one of the big lessons was teaching her to have roots and wings, which I think really sums up so much of parenting. And I managed to do that, but a little too well. And she's flown to Seattle. Right? And she tells me, she comes back with that, you did your job well. Right?
Thank you, Julia. Leanne.
For me, it is the biggest love I've ever felt. And I believe God is love. And, first minute I looked in my baby Olivia's eyes, and held her. This is the biggest love I've ever felt.
Thank you, Leanne. And Beth?
Yeah, I think kids help bring me back to spirituality. I grew up in a very spiritual family, and I left that and sort of came back to it through UUism. But also, I feel the closest thing I've had to a true spiritual experience was after the birth of my third son, my third child, my second son. And it was probably partially drugs. But my first 2 births were so traumatic, I don't really remember holding them for the first time. But the third one was a planned C-section, and just the feeling of holding him after that, knowing he was my last child, and that this was my last birth experience, was closest I've had to like a true spiritual experience. And I think parenting is so much day-to-day, down and dirty stuff, but every now and then you get these sort of spiritual experiences through it.
So I didn't actually give birth to my daughter. She was adopted from China and was abandoned on a sidewalk when she was 10 days old. And there is no difference between parenting an adopted child, in my experience, and it teaches you a lot about nature versus nurture. But for me, it was, the first moment I saw my daughter, it was love at first sight also. Just a beautiful thing.
Thank you, Julia, for sharing that. Anybody else who would like to share? Judy.
Tom and I also adopted children our children came from Korea, but I remember being in the airport in Detroit waiting for our son to get off the plane, and he had papers showing his Korean name, and all the people getting off the plane said, "Where's the parents of Kim Jin-woo? Where's the parents of Kim Jin-woo?" And we were like, okay, what did he do? We just adopted him. What's he done already? But what we found out is that he crawled up and down the floors of the airplane and entertained everyone. And who he was when he got off the plane is still the person he is today, and he's now 43.
Thank you, Judy. Charlene.
I love my daughters dearly, and what spirituality meant to me was that through everything, God was always with me.
Thank you, Charlene. And Patrice, you had your hand up? Oh, okay.
I'll add something if I can. For me, motherhood was the first time I had a purpose in life other than myself, like taking care of myself. I was going to work, but I didn't, it was just for myself. And then having a kid, suddenly I wanted to work harder because I wanted to make money to give that kid the best thing I could. And so I know some ministers, I don't think we do here, but some ministers will skip Mother's Day services because, as we know, it also is a source of great pain for some people. But I told Reverend Jim today that to me, the most spiritual day of the whole year is Mother's Day, because that is the most important aspect of myself. And I think for society, motherhood, good or bad, is the most important relationship for most of us. It's how we start out. And then, you know, even as we get older, I mean, I remember my dad crying when his mom died and he was in his 60s. And, you know, so I think it's such an important, it influences us either for good or bad, but it's such an important relationship in society and communities. And so I'm really glad that Reverend Jim was open to having our Mother's Day panel today. And
Yeah, thank you, Joanne. Let's give the panel and Joanne a round of applause. These questions did come from Joanne, and thank you very much. I was actually just speculating with my wife the other day that one of the differences between a man and a woman is that many women, or most women, in the act of having children already have their meaning set for them, or a great deal of meaning, because we know we need meaning in life, and that for men have to go out and make their own. But I've been thinking now this week about motherhood, and I was what came up to me was back when my kids were in Little League, you know, little kids, and they were out, you know, hitting the balls out there. And there was this one little kid who was pitching, and he took a line drive right into the groin. I mean, it just bent him right over. He's laying there, and the moms are going, "Oh no, are you okay?" And the dads are going, "Walk it off, get up." So there are different roles, but we have internalized our mom. We really have two moms in us. We have our instinctual mother, and we have our conditioned mother. But I think right now in the milieu that we're in right now, that we need to be relying more on our internal mothers for the foundations of our spirituality. And where I particularly think we need to bring our mothering out, our caring, nurturing parts of ourselves out, is in the current political situation. How many people here have family members who are just crazy? Okay. Of course, they're not. They think you're crazy too. But the thing is that they don't need the male energy right now. If you have a difficult situation, and I just talked with a friend of mine who is in Oregon right now, cleaning out the house of his brother-in-law. He's just deceased. And one of the difficulties they're having is that there's all this tension in the family. And of course, he wants to do the male thing. He wants to be reasonable and have facts and stuff. And I got to tell you, all the facts in the world aren't gonna help the situation. I didn't say it, but what I meant was you need to find your mother, find your nurturing part. And that's what your relationship needs. Anyway, thank you very much, all of you, for coming here, and thank you for Beth and Dave who came to visit. Audrey is a doula. I don't know is that correct, Audrey? Did I get that right? Yeah. So she's all into the motherhood thing, knows a lot about it. And at any rate, thank you all. And let's do the closing hymn.
So the Chalice Extinguishing is written by Maureen Killeran. As we leave here today, may we hold in our hearts the mothers we have known, those who loved us and those who tried. May we forgive the mothers who didn't get it right and try to release the knots of disappointment, anger, grief, pain. May we hold in our hearts the truth that mothering, nurturing, is a task that belongs to all of us. However old or young you are, whatever your gender, may you make extra room for nurturing in your life this week. May you say something real to a harried store clerk, give a coworker a genuine compliment, take time to listen deeply to a friend. In our shared silence, may we remember and reflect and create anew the stories of love and nurture from this point forward, stories that can be true.